everyone says something different. And I just emailed him. I'm like, no, just don't give up. Just don't give up and just keep trying. And my tools might not work for you, but you will find something that will work for you and you'll build on that. And yeah, I would just really say, like, don't give up, no matter how painful and miserable it might be for you right now.
Hi, good morning, Aoife, and good morning, everyone. Today, I'm with Aoife. We just spent a little bit of time to connect so that we can share some information for people in the community, for people who are dealing with chronic pain. And I had a lovely conversation, but also an intense conversation, knowing a bit more about you. And I'm really grateful for all you share. I want people to hear your voice a little bit, so I'll let you intro yourself really quickly, and after I'm going to present you a little bit more.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been so nice chatting with you too, Phil, and I'm excited to talk more. So yeah, my name is Aoife, and I am a transformational health coach for highly sensitive women. They are the people I work with most. And I help these women, highly sensitive women, to learn how to heal themselves from chronic pain, chronic illness, and anxiety and depression. So that is using the mind-body connection and tools that relate to the mind-body medicine and mind-body work. So that's what we're going to be sharing more about today.
Awesome. Thank you for the intro. You did a better job than me. So now I'm going to spend a little bit of time to explain, to share a bit your story. I know you went through quite a bit, and I'm going to try to sum up in my word a little bit, but I want you to get deeper into some of the place where we'll stop, so that people can have an idea that you come as a professional from being a person in pain in the first place. And that story was very, very interesting to me, very emotional. So you were born in England, and very at a young age you felt a lot of discomfort and pain. You said it, the tummy soreness. You had a sore tummy, and you had parents who tried to help you tremendously as much as they could, but you hit a wall over and over with the medical field. And a lot of people in pain can relate to that. And it went into some difficult time where you were dismissed, your pain was dismissed, and people told your parents to just like pretend it's going to get better and just move on, which was very, very difficult. But you also have a very beautiful story of trying everything and being, from a young age, I would say courageous. You probably would not say that about yourself, but from what you told me, that's who you sound like. You sound like someone who was very courageous at a young age and try to overcome all of those pains. Went from that tummy soreness, from fevers to more hospital tests, seeing pediatrician. One pediatrician told you that you were the mystery girl, which probably that doesn't sound really nice when you experience that. To also a difficult time in your teenage year. What really was interesting to me is when you explain all of that, I saw definitely a story of resilience, but I saw also someone who tried so many things. Like some of the stuff you've tried, I've never heard about. So we talked a bit about traditional medicine, doctors, pediatrician. You have tried also nutritional approach to help you with pain. You've tried also therapy, psychology, psychoanalysis, EFT, RTT was the one I've never heard about. Rapid transformation therapy, psychiatry. And in all of that, you had no results. You still felt the pain. So I want you to kind of take that story a little bit from here, from that first part, so that you can share from your words how you experience from a young age the medical field.
Yes, thank you. When I was really young, is there a bit of feedback?
I don't feel it on my side.
Okay. So when I was really young, a little kid, I had these symptoms. I had sore tummy and these fevers. So my body would go into a high fever, and there was apparently no reason for this to happen. So yeah, I was getting tests done, blood tests and all kinds of tests by doctors, and there was no results. So yeah, it was just my life. That's kind of all I knew was that I had these things that meant I missed a lot of school, and at times I had pain, aches and pains through my body, and fevers and sore tummy. And that there was nobody knew. There was no reason, there was no name for it. So it was all very vague and confusing at the time.
It is a common theme. You might have encountered that with your client, but you definitely lived it. The theme of we don't know. And that is extremely, the word you used was confusing and frustrating. And it's very common to kind of hit the wall. You go see the doctor and they're like, I'm not sure, and it really is unsettling for anyone. And if we move a little bit forward, you finally had a diagnosis. Would you care to talk about that and how you felt from that diagnosis?
Yes, because when I was 27 when I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and up until that point, I had all kinds of symptoms and illnesses that meant I was out of school, and I never had a diagnosis. So I would be, missing school or missing events, and I had no way of communicating this to people. So that is a very isolating and confusing place to be in the first place. So I always dreamed of having a diagnosis. I just thought like it would bring me a community, it would bring me clarification, it would bring me explanations, and I thought it would bring me some kind of road to recovery, or I would find stories of recovery. Just really felt like it would bring me out of that world of vagueness. So when I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I was kind of relieved, and I was kind of excited, weirdly, but unfortunately, that disappeared very quickly, because it turned out that still the answers were, we don't know what fibromyalgia is. We don't know what's causing it. We don't really have a protocol that will work. You can try this, you can try that. And then when I found communities of so many other people with this diagnosis, they also were still struggling, and they were still feeling kind of like that desperation that I felt before, of wanting answers and wanting to feel better, and that struggle of nothing working.
It's interesting, right? In a sense, the first big frustration is the pain, and frustration is a nice way to put it. It's the first difficult time, it's the pain. The second is not knowing what the pain is or where it's from. The third is, even when sometimes it's not enough, because it doesn't necessarily have a road to recovery or to feeling better. Thank goodness, though, for you, there was like you mentioned in the, like, we're about you rock bottom. We mentioned that in the conversation when we kind of talked a bit with each other. But you had that diagnosis of fibromyalgia. You got a beginning of optimism, and then you got disappointed because there was not necessarily a road to feel better from there. And you, interestingly enough, you moved to Australia to find some answers, but you cannot find the same problems over there. They try to help you with food and nutrition. They try to help you recover from that, but you ended up being terrified about the food. And then a series of 3 events really happened in 2017 when you hit rock bottom, and it took you over the edge. You went really into a darker moment of your life, and a lot of people can relate to that. Like, there's a moment in your life where things are getting from bad to worse. The moment where just after that you got into learning about the mind-body connection. I'd like you to kind of take us through like the rock bottom to the tipping point toward finding that hope again?
For sure. So yeah, like just to touch on the food thing, because IBS and irritable bowel syndrome and food like can be very connected to these kinds of all different illnesses, and it's a big topic. So having had the stomach problems for so long, I was directed by so many people to go gluten-free and go sugar-free and do all these things. And I, being this committed person to my healing and really desperately wanting to feel better, I really followed that very strictly. And I hadn't eaten gluten or sugar in years, but I wasn't getting any stronger at all from these practices of cutting things out of my life. In fact, my world was just getting smaller and smaller, and the things that brought me pleasure and joy were moving further and further away. So this path to healing that I was on was making me sicker in lots of ways. And like you said, making me so scared of life, so scared of food, so scared of doing anything that was going to flare up my symptoms and debilitate me then with all the different pains. So then when I came back from Australia and I was still not better, I had still not found any more answers. I was still scared of food. And I was just about able to hold together a part-time job and move back in with my parents. So they were kind of, taking care of me a bit. And so 3 traumatic events did happen to me. I had a car crash, a relationship breakdown, and a friend of mine took her own life. And at that point, before those things happened, I was just about keeping my head above water. I was like, I could only get through my day if I had certain food at certain time of the day and certain supplements, certain herbs at certain time of the day. And everything was this very delicate balancing act just so I could keep my head above water. Not so I could thrive or laugh or play or have fun, but just so I could get by living in my parents' spare room. So those 3 events were just too much, and they tipped me over the edge, and everything just came crumbling down, and I couldn't get out of bed anymore. All of my symptoms got worse. I developed more symptoms, bladder syndrome, like all kinds of things, couldn't sleep, couldn't get out of bed. And I then had to go on disability benefits. So I went really down. I was really, really stressed. I was suicidal. I had done everything right in the health world. And I had also followed so many, doctors all around the world. I'd done what I was told to do. I had done therapies, and I was like, I was a privileged person. I had access to so many different types of help, and nothing had worked. Not only had it not worked, but I felt worse than ever. So that was a really, really just terrifying place to be. And a friend of mine sent me this video of a doctor, mind-body doctor, speaking about the mind-body connection. And my first response was to roll my eyes and like, are you kidding? Like, have you not met me? Like, I know it all, right? I have done it all. Like, test me, I've done it all. So, but I was so desperate. I wanted to feel better. So I gave it a shot, and I watched this video of this doctor, this mind-body doctor, speaking about the mind-body connection and the nervous system and phantom leg pain and just the things that he spoke about. This was the missing piece of the puzzle for me. And in that moment, everything made sense to me that had not made sense that far in my life before.
It's when you talk to me about that, like it's a powerful tipping point in a good direction. You went from bad to worse, trying it all, and really dedicating yourself to the protocol that were given to you, and really being able to, at that point, find some hope again. It was very powerful when you mentioned that. The mind-body connection is interesting because it has a good or a bad rap, depending on who you ask. But really, a lot of people benefit from knowing about that simple yet powerful concept. So if you can take us a little bit on how you saw, what you discovered into that mind-body connection that you didn't really hear from other doctor, that'll be helping people that are listening to you. Like, what is that connection? What is that different? What is it different from the previous protocol?
Yeah, so I guess it was understanding that my nervous system that was connected to all parts of my body and my pain, also my pain receptors, but all parts of my body. So if my nervous system was in a state of stress, caused by traumatic events, big events, or also by my own belief systems and habits and the way I was relating to myself and the world around me. If there were factors that were causing my nervous system to be in stress, that could be affecting the rest of my body, any part of my body. And so this is something that I had not considered before. I hadn't known before. So in terms of like my skin, if my nervous system was in a state of stress, my skin is the largest organ in my body because I used to have skin issues, that my skin would then be in acidic state and different things could happen on my skin. And this is something I hadn't never considered before. And in terms of the pain that I was feeling right throughout my body, learning that the pain, that it was connected to my brain, that my brain was involved in pain, and that if those parts of my brain were in stress, that they could be also contributing or generating the pain. So that was new information to me, that my thoughts, emotions, and experiences that were stressful or generating stress, that stress was felt in my nervous system, that I was feeling it in my body, and that was then affecting or generating different kinds of symptoms in my body.
You know what cracked me up when we talked about that? You after decided to put it to the test, and you tested yourself. Like you tried yourself with this new knowledge and see how you can overcome that. So what did you do to kind of like put it to the test?
Yeah, so one of my big things was food. I had from a very young age had a painful tummy all the time, and I was told from a young age to stop eating dairy and stop eating sugar and wheat and all these things. So my whole life, I was 30, in my early 30s when I found this mind-body connection. But up until that moment, my whole life I had been tormented by food, physically tormented by food. It was when I ate gluten or sugar, I would have these physical reactions, like these debilitating physical reactions. I would even have like reactions on my skin. And so when I found the mind-body connection, I knuckled down, I read all these books, and by reading the books and taking in the information, I deactivated a huge amount of fear in this like different, all my symptoms terrified me because they had caused me so much stress, and they were painful, they were disturbing. So I deactivated a whole bunch of stress by this information, this kind of knowledge accumulation. And I went to the shop near me, and I bought a packet of Guinness and also a box of Mars ice creams. And no one had seen me near these things in so long because I had been a health freak for so long. So it was really like going to the other extreme, right? And I sat there and I drank the Guinness and I ate the Mars ice cream, and I didn't have a symptom reaction. It was gone. And from that moment on, I have been able to eat anything that I wanted to, and I like to make choices around food, of course, but for me, that was the first time I saw something happen that I had been wanting to happen my whole life and had not yet managed to do. So that was a powerful moment.
Yeah, it was a courageous moment too. Like it shows to like that person who for years, for decades was told the problem is you're not good enough in eating the right thing enough and things like that. And you getting that new knowledge, practicing, working at it, and then trying that bold move of like, well, let's try to see if it really flies. That's very courageous. Like it shows to the heart that you have behind to try to not just get better, but really to put it into practice and to put it to the test. And I really had a chuckle when you told me about that little story. But is this kind of like a theme that you've done after that? You've grown your knowledge into the mind-body connection, and then you test it, and again, and test it. Tell me how helpful it is for you to test it. Like, how is that? Is it getting easier to test it, or is it still of a challenge, but seems like the right thing to do?
Yeah, so I'm always testing how far I can bring this. So for me, it's really been a journey of discovery and discovering that I had all these different belief systems and habits about myself, like relating to myself and the world around me, that were generating a lot of stress. And that for me was contributing to a lot of health issues and conditions. So for me, I'm always testing how much I can break free, or what is a belief and what's what I can change about myself in order to experience more resilience, more peace, more harmony, for want of a better word, in my body, in my nervous system. So yeah, I kind of forget what your question was now.
Well, let me point you in one of the tests that you told me you did. You cannot travel across the world. Like you went from Europe or Ireland to Australia to then back to Ireland. Then you went all the way to Indonesia. And for me, that was testing really far, because you mentioned that you went away from your connection. You went away from everything you knew in order to work much more deeply into that new system that you found, but also see if you were able to maintain that away from the safety net, in a sense. That's one of the tests that you did. That I thought was very, once again, courageous. Like when someone experienced pain and chronic pain for so much time, for so long, they're gonna try everything. But like you mentioned before, oftentimes the circle is smaller and smaller of how confident you are into something else. Oh, this is gonna help. That's gonna help. After a while, it gets really, really difficult. But moving across the world to put it to the test, I think it's kind of like an intense act. But yet it served you. And another thing you mentioned, I don't know if you can put that in a category of test, but maybe also. But in the idea of forgiveness, I wanted to. We talked about that, and it's a subject that you really like. And I want you to maybe tell us a little bit about what you feel is your journey right now with forgiveness.
Great question. So the on the path of discovery about myself, and which is for me just the core of the mind body journey, is exploration of yourself, whether it's like you go traveling and you really push those boundaries, or maybe you don't go anywhere, but you're going to push those boundaries and explore in your own way. But for me, on that path of discovery, I realized a lot of things about myself. And that some of those habits and belief systems that I have that generated stress on my body were things like having very high expectations of myself and of others. Also, not having a lot of compassion for myself at all, and probably not for others as well. Also, just feeling, I don't know if this is just a highly sensitive person thing, but I would feel so affected by things in my life as a child, growing up, like a lot of things that maybe other people would not be so affected by. I just felt things very deeply, and I found it very hard to let things go. I would see other people kind of move through life with a bit more resilience and like seemingly less affected by things. But for me, everything felt very deep, and I found it hard to let things go maybe as easy as other people did. So, but major theme was not forgiving myself. I remember breaking up with this guy when I was like in my early 20s, and I was not happy about how I did it. And he was hurt at the time. And years later, I met up with a friend, and this person who I broke up with was like fully living his own life in thriving in his own world. And I was still punishing myself for not doing a better job of like breaking up with him. And, it was like, just, I couldn't let it go, right? So just really being unable to forgive myself for not being perfect, forgive myself for making mistakes, forgive myself for being human. And also my childhood, like things that I did in like bullying my little brother, or, like just things that I couldn't let myself off the hook for all those years. And that was a very tense way to be living. It was a lot of, to be carrying that around with me all the time. Like, oh, I wasn't so kind to my little brother when I was a kid, or that I didn't break up with this guy in the best way, So what also I found when I couldn't let myself,
Here's an exercise of forgiveness. Give me a second. Sorry, something came and was making a lot of noise, and I was trying to let you carry on, but it's actually a perfect exercise of forgiveness. Please forgive me for the interruption.
All is forgiven.
Carry on. Sorry.
So just carrying around. And when I found I was so hard on myself, and I was so hell-bent on punishing myself for not being perfect, that the saying, like, you treat others like you treat yourself, or you can't love others unless you love yourself, the way people say that, is like, well, I found that I also was treating other people like this. So it meant that it was a stressful place to live internally. And that was also generating stress in my body. And that was also affecting my health and my sleep and my peace.
So what people don't see is off screen, I got a little vacuum here that went into a tornado noise. And I don't know how to turn it off. So that's why I'm like trying to go on with the flow. And I hope people get the message across with the forgiveness. I think it's so important to realize that there's like strong connection with like the perfection, the forgiveness. You mentioned some very important point also with shame and guilt associated. So all those emotions are very tricky to address, and it's not that easy necessarily to find a way out of it, to realize, hey, this was a big deal. It really affected me. How can I navigate through this with my with an approach sometimes as powerful as mind-body connection? I know that there's another point that I wanted to ask you about. So we didn't really talk about that, but I would like you to kind of give us a little bit of an overall approach on how you overcame that difficult part of your life. I'm not saying that you've dealt with it and you're done. there's still work to do, there's still things to do. But in a sense, it feels to me that you went from not feeling well to feeling worse to now having found that hope, and now working even deeper into feeling better. Not necessarily that's an easy work, but it's actually a meaningful work. And I really like what you mentioned about that, like when people talk about or address forgiveness, it's not easy. But it's meaningful, and that's a theme that seemed very important to you. And it's also something that I would say, to some extent, you have overcame something very, very difficult. How do you feel about that journey so far? Like, I know it's a broad question, but I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, so learning, first of all, when I got some space, like I just thought this was me, right? I just thought I had a loud, and I didn't know I had a loud inner critic. I just thought that was me. I just believed those thoughts about myself. Had no clue I was a perfectionist. I just thought this was my life. I had to have really, high standards for myself. So I didn't know any of these things about myself. So really, like, when I was in that place, none of that was visible to me. So I couldn't have any space for softening and compassion or anything towards myself. So really just getting that space was the first step. And realizing, like, I thought also, like, I was a caretaker. I was always taking care of other people and not myself. I just really thought this was just me. So first of all, just discovering all these parts of myself that had developed and that they weren't necessarily just me. And so getting that space, first of all, getting space there allowed for a broader view or a broader perspective on any situation. And when I began to have a broader view or broader perspective on myself and the situations in my life, past, present, or whatever, then I began to have a bit more of a broader space for other people as well. And that space just allowed for more compassion and more understanding, and has given me more peace. And then bringing in then tools, like different kinds of tools that are going to help to bring more space into those parts of me. And like you said, it's an ongoing, ever-going journey. But compared to not knowing that at all, like not knowing that actually a lot of these thoughts that are going on in my head are like an inner critic and they're not total truth, like that, just that space can and then reaching for some tools or support to challenge those thoughts, to maybe reframe those thoughts, and then developing practices over time that help to change those habits and ways of relating, and then catching myself, oh, that's probably perfectionism, or that's that loud inner critic, or so that's kind of for me where it's at, that where this is all changing, and that I'm able to have a different perspective on the past then as well.
That's very interesting. Like, I know what the most significant thing I see about you is that you went through a lot, and that made you pay attention. And we talked about the fact that you work with people, you've helped people, you have a webinar coming up. We're going to share that in just a moment. But one thing that is really powerful is the fact that because you lived it, you don't just dismiss or tell people, well, just, try this, goodbye. You really invest so much time in you that you understand how much it takes out of someone. And I can really appreciate that in someone who not only was in pain, find a way, but also is helping others. It's like it's not that easy to help others not knowing how things are in their world. And for example, your niche is specific. It's a sensitive woman, and I could not relate. I could try, right? I could make an effort, but I could not relate to all that is it that you've been dealing with. So knowing that there's someone who went through that and is helping people in that specific niche is very useful to me, but also very encouraging to other people. It's like, oh, I never thought about this. Like maybe this video would be their video, like your first video on mind body. It's like, oh, I'm a woman, I'm sensitive. Maybe it was explained to me another way, I didn't get it, or maybe this is it. Oh, I never thought about it this way. I want to actually take a moment right now to switch and see how I can share the screen to show people. Okay, this is something that I would like people to kind of take a look at. That's a webinar that's coming up. You said March 15? Yes, it's March 15 on 3 ways to release your past, heal your health, and be excited about the future. It's a live webinar. You want to talk a little bit about this? That's kind of like part of the realization of everything you've worked on to help yourself and now help others.
Absolutely, yes. And because of all the things that I tried that didn't work for me, and they might work absolutely for other people, which is amazing. The things that didn't work for me, and then finding these tools that have worked for me, this is what I teach my clients, and that they get these great results then for themselves. And what I do is I teach my clients how to heal themselves so that they have this knowledge and they have these tools and they always have them then to go to. And these are the things like healing the past, having a different perspective on the past has really, really, really helped me to find more peace in my body and my mind. And then having the mind body knowledge and getting really clear on, what I don't need to be using my precious time and precious energy reading about, looking at, whatever. This is what I just focus on. That cleared up so much time wastage, so much money wastage for me. That was my massive, massive turnaround. And then the other thing is that it's when you're just consumed with chronic pain, chronic illness for so long, you really are not excited about your future. You're like worried. You're like, I just don't know. You're thinking about how you're going to get through the next day. So really starting to get excited about the future is a really fun part of my work. And when you start to clear away all the belief systems and blockages and start to feel that glimmer of hope again, you really get to tune into what your unique expression is, your strengths, gifts, your talents, and whatever it is, good humor, making people laugh, baking bread, like just when you've been sick for so long, you have not done your habits, you haven't engaged in joy in so long. So this is the funnest part of my work, is when my clients really start to just clear away all the junk and start to be connected to their joy again. And this gets them excited then about the future. And there's no better path to healing than just joy and pleasure and laughter and play and getting or adventure and getting excited about your future again. So that's what I'm going to be chatting about. And my whole vibe is keeping it really simple, because when you're highly sensitive, I don't know if it's like this for other people, but you get like overwhelmed easily, like light sounds, and then you try and heal from things, and you've got books and podcasts and you're busy and you've got your affirmations all over the wall and you're like, so my whole vibe is like keeping it so simple. I'm actually quite lazy, despite what it might sound like. I like keeping things really simple. So just learning these like simple tools, like how can this work for me? Our brains like simple, easy information, and also fun.
Is that you eating an ice cream on that picture?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a strong message. I love it. Well, all right. Is there any thing you'd like to add? I think we covered a lot, and I know I'd be curious to hear more about your journey in the future. I think you gave a lot of at least hope to people that you can get better, right? I think that's a powerful message right there. That try again. Hopefully, you can find something else and test it. Uh, and if you need someone to help you, because we can benefit from someone else helping us, reach out. And for some people, reaching out to looking at that webinar or reaching out to you could be their way to get better and the way through. So is there something you'd like to close with? Like, that's a tricky open-ended question here, so good luck.
Actually, yes. Because I was helping a guy who was emailing me, and he just said, "Oh, I give up. Everyone says something different." And I just emailed him. I'm like, "No, just don't give up. Like, if you take anything from my story of like 32 years of trying everything all over the world and trying it again and wanting to die and wanting to give up in every sense of the word, but just don't give up and just keep trying. And my tools might not work for you, but you will find something that will work for you and you'll build on that." And yeah, I would just really say, like, don't give up, no matter how painful and miserable it might be for you right now. Keep trying, keep asking for help, keep reaching out, and keep having conversations with people. And so yeah.
That's a very good message to close on. So thank you so much again, Aoife, for helping us today to share that message and to share a bit about you. I know putting people on the spot is not necessarily comfortable, but that was a powerful message. So I hope to talk to you soon. And with this, have a great rest of your day.